With you here on News Radio WRVA. My name is Rich Herrera. Thank you so much for joining us here for Richmond's Morning News. If you don't start with us, you fall behind the rest of the day. Now, ever since Abigail Spanberger ran for governor and I've taken this job, I've had people inundate me with text messages and emails, and they stop me and they go, listen, you can't trust her. She worked at the CIA. She's a born liar. Okay. I do not want to be that disrespectful to people that work in our intelligence community. I've had family members that have done it. I know how patriotic they are. So for all of those people that have called in, I said, just hold on. Let's see what she does. Let's get receipts and see how she governs. Well, I was in Ireland. I read this wonderful piece in the Richmond Times-Dispatch by a former CIA case officer who had a similar duties, I believe, to the governor. And he wrote that, listen, let's just watch and see what she does instead of everything else. So I've actually reached out to him and invited to come on the program with us. Joining us right now, Brad Karony, a former Virginia resident, former CIA case officer who wrote that wonderful piece of the Richmond Times-Dispatch, and he's joining us right now on News Radio WRVA. Thank you, sir, for joining us. I appreciate it so much.
Wonderful to meet you, Rich. Glad to be here and glad to answer some questions and just fill in some of the blanks for you.
So, as I told you, instantly people are like, oh, CIA, you can't trust them. Well, I know the people that work at CIA. I have family members that have done it. They're patriots like all the rest of us, but they do have special trade craft. They call it trade craft, the toolbox that you have when you work in intelligence. My son wants to work in intelligence, so I try to study up on all of that. Your post in the Richmond Times-Dispatch caught my attention. For those that missed it, can you just give us a little thumbnail sketch of what you said?
Sure. Basically, I was looking at the governor's comments from the point of view of me being a retired CIA case officer, which means that we're trained in persuasion and things like that, and Governor Spanberger being a former case officer. Basically, the government spent millions and millions of dollars training both of us to be persuasive individuals to, protect and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. So I wrote that article saying, you know what, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the things that she's saying, and I'm also paying attention to the things that she's doing. And what I noticed on my end is that some of the things that she was talking about seem to be consistent with branding your image and tradecraft. And so I wrote it from that perspective. Now, what I also noticed is you talked about receipts, right? I mentioned that in my article. I talked about a comment she made in 2021 that was very moderate about, when Biden had taken office and when Youngkin had taken office and things like that, and how she had claimed to be a moderate voice, but yet she voted with Biden in the House 73 out of 73 times. So that was kind of where it all started. I saw this discrepancy. Does that make sense?
Right. Now, here's the part that I have told people on the air, and I've told other lawmakers, so I'm so grateful for you coming on. There's a difference between a politician where, how can you tell a politician's lying? Their lips are moving. There's times where politicians will say one thing, do the other. That's just the swamp. But then there's the point of, and I would tell my son all this time, a lie of omission or manipulation is worse than just a bald-faced lie, because you're treating me like I'm a fool, like you're smarter than I am, and you're going to pull one thing over on me. And people get confused so much when they talk about her because they just hear three-letter agency, CIA, the boys in Langley, and they instantly think that, oh, she's James Bond. So before we do anything else, let's make sure we understand what a case officer does in the CIA.
Right. So the case officer, it's at our most basic level. We are trained we have our job is to spot, assess, develop, recruit, handle agents that provide information to senior policymakers and the President of the United States on information that you couldn't normally get. You couldn't surf the internet for, or you couldn't talk to somebody and get. It's the secret stuff, right? So with that responsibility comes a very high moral code, so to speak. We do this against foreigners, but the moral code is you never use this against your colleagues or against Americans, right? It's that higher standard.
So you understand how to gather intelligence, create relationships, create personas that will bring someone closer to you to share something they normally wouldn't share with the neighbor, a friend, or a bartender. It's built on relationships, and it's built on mirroring the people that you're trying to get information from to make them feel comfortable?
That is yes, but I would add one element to that. And that one element is that it's a deliberate process moving that person into the direction that we want them to go so we can get the information. It's not just about being friendly, right? It's about being friendly with a purpose. The purpose on this side is obviously to get the information that they wouldn't normally share.
Brad Karony joining us right now, a former CIA case officer, had a wonderful op-ed piece in the Richmond Times-Dispatch that I read while I was in Ireland. He's our guest here on News Radio WRVA. You talked about the moral compass of using these skills that you've learned and you were taught by the Central Intelligence Agency to not use it against your fellow Americans. Can you explain a little bit more for us?
Sure. That's with what is the Spider-Man quote?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. With great power comes great responsibility. And this is work, right? They train you to do this. And then when you actually go and do it and it works, it's kind of one of those amazing moments. And so because it works, you don't use this on your colleagues in the office. You don't use this on your fellow Americans. As my wife likes to say, don't use it on me, but it's okay to use it on the teenagers. But it's a higher standard, right, that we have to uphold. And that's kind of what I talked about in the article too. There's nothing wrong with her, the governor, being a former CIA case officer, right? But it's a higher standard that we hold ourselves to. Can we tell the difference between when and if she might be using tradecraft? Yeah, it looks like you said, it looks like the same, like a politician, their lips are moving, right? We can't tell. But I know, and she knows, that we have a higher standard. And that's why I wrote the article. And then the ultimate answer is like, what does she do? Not what does she say?
See, I told you off air, I worked in sports. So I look for scouting reports. I look for tells. I look for little things that people do that just watching the game, you're going to miss. But if I notice this linebacker cheats over this way, then that's what play's coming. And you can read those things if you study long enough. And I look at some of the things the governor does, and I see her say one thing, that no, we're not a sanctuary state, and I'm going to support ICE and we're going to help them, but they need a judicial warrant, which is different than the warrant that ICE usually has. ICE is a civil enforcement of immigration. If I have to go get a judicial warrant, that means I get a different type of warrant that's in that toolbox that ICE normally has. So I could say one thing, but I've actually done something else because I got out of what you normally would have ICE do. Now I'm asking them to do something extracurricular so I can claim that we're not a sanctuary state because I'll still work with ICE, but I've asked them to do something they normally don't do. That's the stuff that doesn't add up for me.
Right. So, and that's the kind of the similar reason that I wrote the article. The persona that she gives off, that she's using, is her promise to the voters in Virginia, and then how she governs is the proof. And what you're talking about is the same thing that I saw too. And for me, it just became very clear with the gerrymandering piece. The whole idea is that citizens aren't targets. The fair question is not whether or not I can prove that she's using tradecraft. It's, whether her public persona just matches what her governing record is going to be. And that's what the ledger is designed to test. And so as John Q. citizen, will they be able to know if she's using CIA tradecraft? No. And can I guarantee that I can say she's using it? No. But what I can say is, does
I'm going to play a spot after this and then muster.
Right. And so if they don't match, then like you correctly said,
and I already told Gary that we're blowing off sports.
The question is,
the hour because it's going to be way long.
What's she doing? And then that goes back to my original statement. We have a higher standard as case officers, right? Our moral code. And whether she's breaking or not my call, but it's something that we should pay attention to as a longtime multi-decade resident of Virginia, that do her words match her actions.
Let me ask you this. For those that instantly write her off as, she's CIA, can't trust her, how would you respond?
I would say, of course, you can trust her. The CIA isn't a limiting factor. There have been others that have served successfully in the House of Representatives. Will Hurd from Texas, Porter Goss from Florida. She's the first governor, however. And I would just say we should hold her to a higher standard, that she's been trained. And she's an American, and she was elected. And I don't think her CIA service is a disqualifier at all. Again, I just think she, like we are held to a higher standard. And that would be my answer to that.
So again, my statement will be, and it'll continue, listen, it's pretty special to be able to serve in the CIA. You do something that not the rest of us would be willing to do, to go through the training, to put yourself in those situations. So I will never, ever, ever disparage anybody's service in the intelligence community, because we have no idea, just like we have no idea what it's like to be in the military if you never served or you don't have family members that serve. But I do think that just writing her off as a CIA case officer, automatically she's a liar because she's a spy, I think that's a disservice to everybody that has been in intelligence. But you do watch to see what the receipts are, just like everybody else.
I agree completely. That's the only way we as Americans can do it, right? What does she say? What does she do? What are the receipts? Right now, she's 0-1, right? And then if you give the ICE example that you gave, that I did not mention in my article, then maybe she's 0-2, right? And so my plan is over the next 4 years is just to keep that ledger and see if she's putting her money where her mouth is, so to speak.
This is absolutely fascinating. I appreciate you coming on the program with us. I'd love to be able to have you back on again. I do have one last question, if you don't mind. Let me beg this one question of you. For those that ever wonder about our intelligence agency, because I'll be honest, intelligence gets beat up a lot, and they get a lot of people that throw rocks at a glass house that are standing glass house, but I've never seen the CIA throw a rock back. What do we misunderstand about what the people in Langley do?
Rich, we don't throw rocks. All of our successes that we have out there are things that you'll never hear about. All of our failures, the few that are out there, those are the ones that get magnified on the front pages of newspapers. So that's why you don't hear that, and that's why you don't ever see that.
It's an amazing career. I think I told you off air, my son, he wants to work in intelligence, and I'm going to support him every way that I possibly can. Those that serve in intelligence are the ones that, we see the folks that serve in the military. God bless them. We never see those warriors that work in intelligence, and they're the unknown, unseen, nameless heroes that make me proud to be an American, and they allow me to sleep at night because there's someone like you, there's someone like Abigail Spanberger that were standing watch, making sure that we were going to be safe each and every night, even though we never knew where you were or what you did. So I just wanted to thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Rich. I appreciate that.
We'll continue with you. It's News Radio WRVA.
We promised you a first-class country music cruise, and the first sailing of Top Shelf Country Cruise delivered. The bar's set.